Welcome back to KickBack. My name is Ben, and we are proudly presented by CMHA, Brant, Haldeman, Norfolk. I'm now joined by my good friend, Amy. Amy, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
I really appreciate you taking the time to come in and chat with us and our audience. You are a grief recovery method specialist.
Yes.
And I just so much appreciate what you do. And it's just in the last 4 or 5 years of my life, I've experienced a lot of grief, some which people wouldn't necessarily attribute as grief, but knowing to be able to call it that really shifted my perspective and opened my eyes and really helped me heal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Once we learn the definition of grief, which is by definition is the conflicting feelings when a situation changes. So it can be when you lose someone you love. It can be a divorce. I personally believe that every single human on the planet is experiencing their sense of loss of who they were prior to the pandemic to now, 5 years later, now that I'm reworking with people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, right? And I think that that's something that shouldn't be thought of lightly or taken lightly, that we did all experience a global event.
Shift in loss of safety, loss of trust, loss of so many people, loss of finances. And trust, it comes like at the government down, right? So,
right. And so for you, what was the season in life that maybe you realized it was too much? Or too heavy, and you really needed to deal with maybe what you didn't know at the time was grief, but was grief.
So I'll take you back to 2017. 2017, I had separated from my kid's dad, and it was that Christmas time where my dad and my grandmother were both in the hospital. My dad was in Jervinsky, and my grandma was in Brantford General, and I was like, I gotta do something because I feel like I'm just not right, and I was angry and I was frustrated, and then my kids got lice as well, and even lice is a huge grief because it's a change in a normal familiar pattern. So I reached out to a grief recovery specialist here in Paris and started the program, and I thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna prepare to grieve. What I didn't realize is that I hadn't grieved the loss of my mom from 2004 when my mom died. So I had accumulated those losses as well. I started the program, and it's a 6-week program that you work one-on-one with grief recovery specialists. And at week 3, I learned something called STIRBs, which are short-term energy relieving behaviors. So this would be anything from drinking to smoking pot to shopping to pornography. So basically anything that distracts you from healing. And my biggest distraction was wine. And I was like, I'm not ready to give up my wine yet. So I quit the program. And I'm very honest when I start working with people. I'm like, I quit 3 weeks in. Like I was like, nope, I'm not ready yet. Fast forward to 2017, 2018, losing my grandma, losing my dad, and then the end of 2019, I had a business in the Artisan Village, and the windows leaked, and the landlord said, well, it's a good thing you have insurance. And I was like, no, this is not right. So I closed that business. January 1st, moved the business to my home. March 1st of 2020, moved my kids to the home, and then March 11th, the world shut down. So when the world shut down and having to lose my reopen 4 times in 2 years, I realized, okay, I gotta stop drinking for one. So I stopped drinking, started walking 5 kilometers a day, and then went back to the grief recovery method and got certified. Was working with people for about 3 years, and then 2 years ago went through the biggest change in life that I feel women can go through, which is menopause and perimenopause. So that's another level of grief that women can recognize and are aware of their changes. So I'm now helping women navigate the changes within that change of life as well.
Right, and I think that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily label those ones as grief.
Absolutely not. There's 40 different losses in life, believe it or not, and I think I touched on some like divorce, loss of child, loss of parents, loss of grandparents, but then the ones we don't talk about are the losing someone less than loved. So I didn't really know my stepbrother that much, but when I read his obituary, I was, it's still grief,
right?
Because it's conflicting feelings within a time.
Right, and I know that I particularly went through grief through like the grief of life before we had kids.
When you become a parent, absolutely,
and like that change and how that
absolutely
shifts. That's a big one.
Your identity as Ben the dad versus Ben the non-dad.
Yeah, right. Yeah, fair, right? Fair. It's a big change.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's looked at as something that you should be so happy about.
Yes.
And you are, but it also comes with a lot of big changes to your life and your day-to-day.
Yes, 100%. And as a woman, when I was navigating the becoming a mom for the first time, I didn't even realize that, what I was like, I remember feeling something's not right, but I didn't realize it was the grief of me not being able to call my mom and say, hey, is this normal?
Right.
Until I went through the program.
Right. And I think that that's probably what makes you such an incredible resource for your clients, is because you have that lived experience. And I love that. I don't love that you had that experience of like the 3 weeks in and not doing it.
Right.
But I love that you share that with your clients and just you're real.
The honesty of it.
Right. And I think that that's got to be such an important piece of this.
It's one of the core concepts in the grief recovery method is emotional honesty. Because if you're not emotionally honest, you're lying to yourself.
Right.
You know.
And for somebody that's maybe watching and thinking, they're saying, oh, you know what, maybe I am experiencing some form of grief, and they're ready to be honest with themselves with what that looks like. What are the steps that they can take to, like, what is the next steps look like for them?
So we book a discovery call. It's about between a 45-minute and a 1 hour call, and I let the person I share their story of grief, and then I just educate them on I'm not trying to fix you. You're not validating for number one, you're not broken. It's the emotions that you haven't had a place to complete the emotions within the grief.
What are some of the earlier signs of realizing that you maybe do need to get some help for what you're experiencing?
Anger, and extreme sadness. If you find like you're not being able to even the basics like brush your teeth, you're not making your bed, your dishes are piling up on your sink, like those are all signs of grief.
Interesting. That's, I mean, it's such an integral part of like your everyday life and how it can show up in literally anything, right? And it's something that we're not trained to
at all. Well, a good example is when you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off. What do you do?
Right, you get upset.
But you're getting upset because somebody else did something, so that's putting the responsibility on them, right? Whereas you have a choice. You can choose to react, or you can choose to let them go.
Right, and I think that that's an important piece to mention. Then is that you have the choice to be able to continue to live with how you're living
and taking responsibility for your part,
right, of the grief and the loss. And what that looks like.
So essentially what we do in the grief recovery method, which is not, it's not talk therapy. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a social worker. It's an evidence-based 6-step program where you actually look at the relationship and you figure out where the hopes, dreams, and expectations were not met, and you're actually in a safe place to be able to communicate those regrets and losses.
Well, and I feel like there's a lot of people that feel like maybe there's a lot of comparison in like their struggles.
Big time.
Right? And that they're not big enough, or it's just not valid.
Or you're too much.
You're too much, right? What do you say to those people that are maybe watching right now?
Your grief is not too much. You are not too much. And you haven't found a safe person to be able to express those really hard feelings to. As society, we're taught to push the feelings down. We're taught to stay busy. We're taught to distract ourselves. Keep busy is a big one. When my mom died when I was 29, I just started my aesthetics business, and I graduated on a Friday, and we got told on the Monday she had 6 months to live. And when she died, I said to myself and my family, I'm like, I'm going to go to India, I'm going to do my yoga teacher training, and I'm going to just put my business on hold. And my family or my society said, no, like you started this business, you get into your business, and your business will help you to keep yourself distracted. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, these people are older than me. They must know more than me. And hence my drinking. And then now I've learned that we sometimes think other people know better than us, but we truly are the only ones that know what's best for us. But we've been conditioned to get outside of ourselves.
And how important is having the right community for navigating your grief?
It's so important, because if you don't feel like you can be safe to be emotionally honest, it just stays in the backpack. That's another analogy I use is for little kids, when they have their backpacks if you think of every loss you go in life, it goes into the backpack, and then you get to an adulthood, and all of a sudden the backpack's so full, it just, there's nowhere for the grief to go.
Right. And what would you say was maybe the biggest piece that came out of your backpack that allowed you to continue and to become who you are today?
That would be when after my dad died, my brother and I and my stepmom, we went to the funeral home, and we were asked if we wanted ashes, and I said yes. They said no, and the day of my dad's funeral, I was told that I wasn't allowed to have anything of my dad's, including his ashes. And for a really long time, I attached my worth to not having those ashes. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely say, when I went through the grief recovery method, I realized I was angry, and I had identified my attachment to the ashes, but it wasn't that. It was.
Yeah, no, I know, but that would be like a really traumatic piece to be able to go through, and not to be able to have something that you would hold really dear and potentially like the last thing of your dad, right? Mm-hmm. Like I can totally understand how that can really rattle and like just change your perspective.